Hello, everybody. Today's class, the theme is the relationship between a teacher and a student. We were learning in Rambam, a few days ago, how much a student has to respect his teacher, almost treat him like Hashem. Some people have a hard time with that. They think that's the dictatorship, or they think it's manipulative for a teacher to have such control over a student. But the Torah teaches us that if you have a little bit of humility, you know that you don't know everything. You need people which are greater than you to teach you the way. Even if they're not greater than you, it's always great to have a second opinion, because many times you're blinded by yourself. It's hard to be your bias, and we have to listen to a second opinion, especially a rabbi. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is the flip side. The rabbi must love the student. Today's Gemara, we're going to learn the story, is going to bring out how important the student is to the rabbi. Not only the rabbi has to be important to the student, but the student has to be very precious to the rabbi. And like we were learning yesterday in Rambam, that the worst sin is to cause someone else to sin. So the greatest mitzvah is to make someone else do a mitzvah. Right? So the greatest level you can reach is by inspiring another person. And especially teaching, not only inspiring them to do, but teaching them Torah. So we're going to learn about a thief. Not only a thief, Rish Lakish. His name is the only rabbi which is called with a derogatory name. He's called Rish Lakish, which means the chief of the thieves, of the robbers, chief of the robbers. Rish Lakish. And he was one of the biggest rabbis, and we still call him chief of the robbers, because that's what he was. That's what his name was. That's what his nickname was. Interestingly, right before that in the Gemara, there's a debate about, today we always in politics always talk about robbers, thieves or criminals, how to look at a criminal, how to perceive a criminal. So the Rebbe was actually very strongly inspiring the Chabad Shluchim to go to Mufsayim. In Mufsayim means making sure they hear shofar, teach them Torah. Rabbi Yisrael was in many prisons, because the Rebbe shifted the way. Unfortunately, people look at criminals, especially murderers and people like that. They look at them as bad people. The Rebbe taught us not bad people. They have people which have a big thick layer on top of their hidden good. Bad actions. No one is bad. Right? So there's debate right before that in the Gemara and Aseiches Apayalim. It debates if you can go to the police and tell them about a thief, if the police do very, very harsh punishments. In the times of the Talmud, the thief, they would kill a thief. Even in some countries today, they do horrible. Horrible. That's the law. They chop off their hand. So the question is, can you go tell the police this is a thief? So one rabbi said, you can't. They're going to kill them. The other rabbi said, but they're robbing. They're ruining our community. So that's the debate. So right after that story, when it says that Rabbi Lazar, one of the greatest Jewish sages, went and he would help the police find the robbers and kill them. It says in the next story that the head of the robbers, that same head which Rabbi right before catch them and kill them, not by his own hands, but caused them to die, he himself became the greatest rabbi. So before that, in the Gemara, it says the story about Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan is the rabbi which inspired Rish Lakish to become an observant Jew. And it says he used to stand in front of the mikvah. And that's not in today's custom. We don't stand in front of the mikvah. But Rabbi Yochanan used to stand in front of the mikvah. And he used to stand there. And his teacher, his students asked him, why are you standing in front of the mikvah? So he said, when the women go to mikvah and look at me, I'll be in their mind when they go to mikvah. And then when they have relations with their husband, my image will be in their mind. And then they will end up having kids that are as holy as me, as enthusiastic about Torah as I am. So I'm bringing this story as a introduction to the next story to show you how important our relationship with our rabbis is. Not only the teachings they teach us, the example, but even their image, the image of the holy rabbis, that itself inspires us to be good people. That's why there's some Chabad houses that have a picture in the house, because just the image, that's how important the Jewish leaders are. Their image can inspire us. So they asked Rabbi Yochanan, you're not scared that people are going to think you're there for the wrong reasons? So he said, I'm from Yosef. I'm a child of Yosef. I'm a great grandchild of Joseph. And it says about Joseph, his blessing was that no ayin hara, no bad eye will place their eyes on him because he's a child of Joseph. Very interesting. We'll talk about it a different time. So it says in the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan was swimming in the Yarden. Chazi Rish Lakish saw him. This chief of the robbers, the thieves. V'shavar liyard nabase. So the way they taught me in school means shavar means he jumped. So the way they taught us in school, he jumped over the Yarden. But the Yarden is big. So some people say they didn't jump over the Yarden. I mean, there's some places in the Yarden. So maybe over some places he was able to jump over, but maybe he means he jumped in. But the point is, with big strength, he got Rabbi Yochanan in a second. So Rabbi Yochanan looked at him and said, Chelach la'araisa, your strength is wasted. You're ahead of the thieves. You're wasting all your strength stealing from people. What are you getting from this? You should take your strength and put it in the Torah. Because learning Torah is a very hard thing. People don't know this. But it's very hard to sit and learn all day. People call people that learn Torah, how do you say, people that go out of the army in Israel. There's all the debates about if the Yeshiva Bachram should go to the army. So they claim the Yeshiva Bachram, they're lazy. It's very hard. It's the hardest thing to do is learn Torah. If you actually sit and learn, it's the hardest thing. It breaks your head open. It's the hardest study that you could ever do. So Rabbi Yochanan looked at him and said, your strength should go to the Torah. Why are you wasting it to be a thief? So he answered him. He was a smart man. He had to answer right back. Amar leh, he told him, Shufra chalashi, your beauty is for a woman. Like I said before, Rabbi Yochanan was very, very beautiful. That's one of the reasons why he stood in front of the mikvah, so the women's kids should be beautiful. It actually says in the Gemara that there's a list of all the most beautiful people in history. Adam, Yaakov, it doesn't say Rabbi Yochanan. So it says in the Gemara, it's right before, it says in the Gemara, because he didn't have a beard. He didn't grow a beard. It didn't come out. So it makes sense. Rish Lakish is telling him, you're so beautiful, you have no beard. You should be a woman. Why are you a man? Interesting answer. Amar leh, Rabbi Yochanan is also smart. So he had a twist. Amar leh, he answered it, if you do tshuva, apparently Rabbi Rish Lakish wasn't like Rabbi Akiva, he wasn't like Ben Azai that we learned about that they knew nothing until they saw the light. Rish Lakish learned in yeshiva, he was a yeshiva boy, but he decided to become a thief. It was more fun. So he said, if you go back to be a Torah scholar, I'll give you my sister. I hope they asked her permission, but he said, I'll give you my sister. The Shapira Mina, she's more beautiful than me. You say my beauty should be for women? My sister's more beautiful than me. If you do tshuva, if you take all your strength and learn Torah, you can get my sister. Kabbalah Allah, he's like, you know what? I'll take the challenge. Fine, they agreed, they made the deal. I want to jump back over the other side. He wanted to jump back to the other side of the Jordan. He couldn't. Because once he decided he's going to take this on this project of learning Torah, he couldn't go back. He lost his strength. He lost his physical power because he put it all into his intellectual force. He learned and he became a great sage. Rish Lakish. Many times Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, you look at them almost as equal. Even though Rabbi Yochanan is the one that inspired Rish Lakish to become such a high level, but they ended up becoming equal. There's a story that there was about Shuvah, that one of the first Chabad about Shuvahs. Before there was a thing to become about Shuvah, the big professor became about Shuvah, and the rabbi which made him about Shuvah wasn't Chabad, and he used to have chalavakum, milk that wasn't not chalav yisrael, wasn't. There was no Jew overseeing the milking, so most Chabad, for sure all Chabad people, but most real God-fearing Jews don't have this milk. But some people, it's not. Some people, there's some rabbis say that it's not so bad, so some people have it. So he became Chabad, so he couldn't go eat by his house, right? He couldn't eat by his house, so he got very offended. I made you religious, and now you can't eat by my house. So the rabbi said he has to be very careful not to offend him, because even though you became more religious than him, but he's the one that brought you all this far. Right? So therefore, it's very important for someone that You always have to have respect to someone that brings you closer to Hashem. Even if you think for some reason you're more advanced or you got more advanced, you always have to have that respect. But in any case, Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan ended up being in the same level, even though Rabbi Yochanan pulled him in. Yom Echada, one day, have miflagi bei medasha. They were arguing in the study hall. They were arguing about what? Hasayif v'asakin v'pigin v'aremach u'magal yad u'magal katzer. They were arguing about a sword. They were arguing about a spear, about ammunition. Though in the Talmudic times, the ammunition they had in those days, they were arguing about it. When do they become tamid? In the times of the temple, we spoke about already that there's called tuma. There's impurity. Some things are pure, some things are not pure. It's times if you want to go in the temple, you have to be pure. So now, in order for something to come in this realm of being pure or not pure, it has to be either a person, obviously, clothes, or if it's a vessel, it has to be a finished vessel. If something's in the middle of its process, it's not considered. You can't put it in that box it's always pure. So now they're debating when does a spear finish its process? Of course, in this debate, Rabbi Yochanan has no place in front of Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish is the head of thieves. He always used these things. Rabbi Yochanan is sitting and learning all day. Of course, he doesn't know what he's talking. God forbid, but he didn't stand a chance in front of Rish Lakish. So they're debating about it. When do they receive Tumah? When is their finishing of it? When does their process of making them a good spear, a good sword finish? So Rabbi Yochanan says, when they come out of the oven, when you set them up, when they come out of the oven, that's when they finish their process. Rish Lakish says, no, after you take them out of the oven, you put them in water. That's the finishing of the process. So in this case, I'm assuming Rabbi Yochanan said, you know what? I'm sure you're right. You know about these things. So what did he tell him? He says, Lista b'lista sayada. A thief knows about swords. It was a bit of a diss, a bit of an insult. I mean, I don't understand why Rish Lakish should be insulted. He should be proud of himself that he came all the way from there to here. But apparently he was insulted. Amar lei umay hanisli hasam. Umay hanisli hasam Rabbi Karli hacha Rabbi Karli. So Rish Lakish proclaimed, I didn't gain anything physically. What did I gain from becoming a rabbi? There I was a chief, and here I'm a chief. I don't understand the answer. Rabbi Yochanan was very upset. Rabbi Yochanan said, you shouldn't even say such a thing. You shouldn't make as if it's an equal. Being a thief and being a rabbi. So Rabbi Yochanan, think about it. Rabbi Yochanan, he saw a thief. He didn't see a thief. He saw a potential. He saw this thief. He has energy, he has power. Let's bring him on. Like the Rebbe in the times of the hippies. Everyone's complaining about the hippies, in the 60s. These guys are crazy. They're sitting on the street. They have long hair. The Rebbe said, this is opportunity. They're searching for the truth. Let's bring them closer to Judaism. In those times, so many people that were hippies became religious because they were in a search. And when you're in a search, everything is open. You're ready to. So Rabbi Yochanan, he saw his potential. Rabbi Yochanan saw that this guy's not. Was able to see in this thief his potential, but he still was upset. How could you say that a thief and a rabbi are in the same level? So what happened? He was upset. What happens when a rabbi gets upset? Rish Lakish became very sick out of this spiritual. Is sort of like a punishment. So what happened? Asa Achse, the wife of Rish Lakish was the sister of Rabbi Yochanan. Kabaki was crying to Rabbi Yochanan. Amalei Aseh b'shul b'ni, my child, one of her father, if he's going to die. Amalei Azve Yiseme. It's a pasuk in the Torah. Don't worry about the yasim. Don't worry about the orphan. I'll take care of them. He says, do it for your sister. It says in the Torah, forget about the widow. I'll take care of them. So what happened? Rish Lakish passed away from this in Hebrew it's called the Beda. From this thing this sin, this thing of Rabbi Yochanan was upset, he passed away. So now we come to the point of today's class. What happens after he passes away? Rabbi Yochanan loses his purpose in life. Rabbi Yochanan feels he can't live in this world anymore. He feels like I can't live without my student. It says that the Alter Rebbe, when he was in jail, it was a vacation for him. The Alter Rebbe, or the Frierdiker Rebbe, when they were out of jail, when they were in the synagogue, they had non-stop questions, non-stop problems to deal with. When they were in jail, they were 24/7 by themselves. They can learn and daven. But a Jewish leader doesn't feel himself when he can't give. So Rabbi Yochanan, when his great student Rish Lakish, that he put all his effort in to inspire and to make close to Judaism, when he died, he lost his purpose in life. So let's read about this. It says like this. Rabbi Yochanan had so much pain. So the rabbis had a meeting and said, "Man, we have to send him a new student." So they sent him a very great Torah scholar, Elazar ben Patas. He's very, very clever. Azal Yosef Kameh, he sat in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Every single thing Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Yochanan he says, Tanya the Messiah. So Rabbi Elazar said, I have a good proof for what you're saying. So Rabbi Yochanan told Rabbi Elazar, Omar, Atfar Lakish ben Lakisha, you want to come and you want to take the place of Rish Lakish? When I said something to Rish Lakish, he asked right away 24. He asked me right away 24 questions. Every single thing Rabbi Yochanan said, Rish Lakish right away asked 24 questions. So Rabbi Yochanan's complaining, where's my real student? A real student is not someone which, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Somebody that asks questions, somebody that challenges you. Like we said, we learned in Rambam, the highest level in intellect the rabbi can come is through challenging, but not only from his friends, from his students. From his students, from trying to go down, trying to the challenge to give to a student, that's what makes the rabbi come to this depth of what he understands. So Rabbi Yochanan is complaining, why don't I have this? Why don't I have my student that got me to such a high level? Until he said so much pain, it says in the Talmud, that the rabbis davened for him and he passed away. He couldn't live without his student. It says the literal meaning of the Talmud. It says he went a little bit crazy, like he's not crazy, but he lost his mind. And it says therefore they prayed for him. It says in the Torah, it says in the Talmud, they prayed for him and therefore he passed away. Yeah, it says it says in the Rashi, it says he went crazy. So what's the point of it? The point is, when we see someone that doesn't know what we know, it could be a law in the Torah, it could be a mitzvah, whatever it is. Gedal, you're listening? If you see someone that you consider lower than you think he's a criminal, you think he's a low level, so what are you going to do? Tell him, stop it. You're crazy. Scream at him. You don't gain and he doesn't. You don't gain and he doesn't gain. No one gains. What you have to do is Rabbi Yochanan did. Rabbi Yochanan did. He went to him. He went down to the student's brain. But what happened? Two people gain. The student gains, the receiver gains, and the giver gains. When you put yourself aside and you go to the other Jew and you focus all that you got to give him, then he gains and you gain. And the Rebbe explains that it's not enough to give to reach this high level. 100%. When you find a Jew and you find a student, you're able to teach him Torah. There's no question about it that you reach the highest levels that you will never reach without it. And the Rebbe explains, the lower the student is, the further you have to go, the deeper you get. So the deeper you know what you knew already. But that's not enough. You have to, the Rebbe explains, in order to really, really give and to get to this highest level, is when you give, you only think about the receiver. You only see the potential. You forget about the high levels that you can go to. And this is when Rabbi Yochanan saw Rish Lakish, he saw him with all his physical power, this bandit, this thief, this criminal. But he saw all that energy, I can just transform it and make him the greatest Torah scholar, which he became. Such a strong Torah scholar, Rabbi Yochanan couldn't live without him. Because when you really give to a Jew and you find a Jew and you inspire him, you teach him the Torah that you know, the Aleph that you know, you teach him, then it comes to a point that everything you know is dependent on him. You become your student's student. You receive from the person you gave to. Everyone have a great night. See you soon, Rambam.